Good evening and welcome to tonight's candidate forum featuring the 2020 candidates for Jefferson County Sheriff, followed by candidates for the 2 open seats on the Jefferson County Board of Supervisors. Thank you for joining us. Co-organizers of this forum are the Fairfield Economic Development Association and Josh Larrabee, Fairfield Area Chamber of Commerce and Darian Sloat, and myself, Lindsay Bauer, hosting you live and virtually at the Fairfield Arts and Convention Center. We'd like to thank the candidates for attending, Fairfield Media Center for filming and streaming this event for those of you at home, and KMCD Radio for broadcasting both tonight and tomorrow's state legislature candidates forum. We'd also like to acknowledge the Freeman Kevinides Law Firm for sponsoring and making these forums possible. Tonight's event is not a debate, but simply an opportunity for candidates to communicate their views on several issues. Questions have been submitted by community members, and all candidates will have the opportunity to answer each question. Any last-minute submissions will be added to the lineup at the discretion of the co-organizers. We ask that audience members refrain from making comments during the forum, and that candidates are prohibited from soliciting audience input during response times. We will begin tonight with our 2 candidates for Jefferson County Sheriff, Bart Richmond and Tracy Vance. There will be a short break, then we will reconvene with the 4 candidates for the Jefferson County Supervisor, Dee Sandquist, Keith Vladimir, Nick Adam, and Susie Drish. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for opening and closing remarks. There will be a 1-minute and then a 30-second warning given. Then candidates will be asked to end their remarks promptly at the 2-minute mark. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer each question. A 30-second warning will be given, and again, candidates are asked to respect their response time limits. Candidates will please refrain from directing questions or responses to another candidate. Aside from imposing time limits, the organizers and sponsors of this event have neither reviewed nor will we censor the responses of the candidates. Responses are an indication of the positions of the candidates themselves and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the organizers or sponsors or the organizations they represent. The order for opening and closing statements has been determined by coin toss for our candidates for sheriff, with Deputy Vance electing to go second in the opening statements and second in the closing statements. Thank you once more for participating in tonight's forum. Sheriff Richmond, you may begin your opening statement.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Bart Richmond, Chief Deputy of the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. I've been involved in law enforcement for over 25 years, starting with the Fairfield Police Department. I've been in a leadership role the last 8 years with the Sheriff's Office, managing the budget effectively and in some years saving the county over $110,000. I'm an effective leader and communicator within the county, the cities, and the neighboring law enforcement agencies. I am honored to have the support of the sheriff's deputies, correctional staff, reserve deputies, Fairfield Police, and Fire Department. I believe the role of sheriff needs someone who is experienced, honest, and acts with integrity when it comes to county jail, civil office, and all court processes, including enforcement of the sex offender registry, issuance of weapon permits, and managing a team of 36 members and a budget of over $3 million. My priorities will be crisis intervention with de-escalation, budget efficiency, maintaining the safety and security for all citizens, and drug enforcement. Speaking of drug enforcement, I would like to congratulate the Fairfield Police Department, we got a few here tonight, of the recent arrest and seizure of a large quantity of drugs this past Saturday using old-fashioned police work. Congratulations. I believe the sheriff has to be a person that acts constitutionally, respectfully, and compassionately. I believe everyone has the right to be safe and secure with the freedom to pursue happiness in your own unique way. That's why I want to be your Jefferson County Sheriff. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Sheriff Vance.
I would like to first start by thanking the Fairfield Chamber of Commerce, the Fairfield Economic Development Association, and the Fairfield Arts and Convention Center for hosting tonight's forum. And Lindsay, thank you for moderating tonight. I started with the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office as a volunteer reserve in 2012 and was hired as a full-time deputy in 2013. I believe my broad 30 years of experience in public safety, law enforcement, county government, and community relations make me the best person to lead the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. Over the last few months, I have traveled the county listening to citizens and discussing my ideas for improving the Sheriff's Office. This has confirmed to me that it is time for a change. I have received endorsements from many community and business leaders, and also the endorsement of former Sheriff Jerry Droz and his entire administrative team. I have discussed my ideas for implementing a formal training program that will equip deputies with the skills to perform their duties in a manner that citizens expect. How I will institute fiscal discipline and planning to give citizens the most for their tax dollars and enact a community engagement program. And how I will proactively work to interrupt the flow of dangerous drugs, particularly methamphetamine and heroin, into our community. And work with the county attorney, courts, systems, social service agencies to find alternative means to help those who find themselves addicted to these dangerous drugs. On this subject, I too would like to congratulate the Fairfield Police Department on the recent drug bust, recovering approximately 33 pounds of meth. This is the largest quantity of meth ever seized in our county, and they should be congratulated. During this campaign, some have asked me if we really have a drug problem. Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Richmond, defunding the police is an idea that would shift funding from law enforcement to other service organizations in an attempt to build a balanced safety net for responding to various crises without creating new taxes. Do you think there is merit in such a practice, and how could this idea work if enacted?
I don't necessarily agree in defunding the police. I mean, nationwide, I think what we're really talking about is the riots and protesters and how to deal with them, and how we handle those in Jefferson County if it ever to happen. No, I'm absolutely not in favor of any defunding the police for other programs. We act swiftly to protect everybody in this county and protect, damage, assault, that type of thing. So your safety and security is more important to us than defunding the police.
Thank you. Mr. Vance, your response?
I have proposed through this campaign that we add an additional deputy, not defund police. I believe that we could move things within our budget, prioritizing things within the police department, or in the sheriff's office. I do think, however, we do not spend enough money on mental health in this state and in this county. I think that is an issue that's much larger than us, but I will work with our state legislators to come up with solutions to be able to fund mental health appropriately, defund drug addiction, because I think mental health and drug addiction are two major problems that we have in our county. So I would work with them to find additional funding for that, but I would not propose defunding or cutting the sheriff's budget.
Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Vance, how does the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department interact with other service organizations that support our community? And what partnerships do you see strengthening in the future to continue to improve support, especially for the most vulnerable in our community?
Well, the Sheriff's Office works with several agencies in the county. Right now, I believe that with the COVID response and the pandemic, they're working closely with the Public Health Department. We work closely with social service agencies. We work closely with the Ministerial Alliance. We work with Optime. We have folks come into the jail. So we work with all kinds of agencies throughout the county. We also should work with all those social service agencies that would benefit us in order for us to accomplish our job in the county. How would that be enhanced, I think, is the second part of that question. I believe that my background in community relations, being the former executive director of the Fairfield Chamber of Commerce and the Fairfield Economic Development Association, gives me some insight on who those organizations are in the community and the ability to pull those people together to work in furthering the mission of the Sheriff's Office.
Thank you. Mr. Richmond?
Could you repeat the question?
I sure can. How does the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department interact with other service organizations that support our community, and what partnerships do you see strengthening in the future to continue to improve support for the most vulnerable in our community?
Well, we network with a lot of different agencies, for one, not only police department, sheriff's office, drug task force, state agencies, federal agencies themselves, especially on the drug issue. And when we're talking about the drug issue, there's a difference between an addict or a user and someone who is supplying or distributing that drug. I just want to make that distinction. As far as mental health goes, we work with a lot of different agencies. A couple years ago, the state mandated us into regions. We're in an 8-county region. Jefferson County is part of 8 counties. It's all mandated on how much money is put into that regions by our county supervisors. That's at max right now. We're currently at almost $800,000 for this fiscal year that is supplied to that region for mental health. So with that, we work with our local hospital, we work with our local providers, we work with our court services on those type of things. So this isn't anything new, but we've networked with a lot of different people. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Richmond, Jefferson County's population grew by 8.6% from 2010 to 2019. Assuming this trend continues, what changes would you implement in services and personnel to adequately serve that growth?
It's increased 8.6% from 10 to 19. Actually, currently, the way we're operating now, we're able to handle it. I'm not exactly sure if it would increase in another 9 years, another 8.6%, if we would need additional help as far as the sheriff's office goes, whether that's additional deputy, additional correctional staff. Right now, we maintain a 32-bed facility jail, and we have 2 or 3 correction officers in that jail at any one time. We can operate safely. There's a balance there. We operate between 15 and 25 all the time. As far as any additional staff, right now we do not need to operate with any more additional deputies because we're adding a constant cost to the budget every year. Thank you.
Mr. Vance.
Obviously, with an increase in population, the calls for service go up. More people. Currently, again, I have proposed that we add an additional deputy to handle the drug activity in our county. 2 weeks ago, at the Farm Bureau Forum, my opponent stated, and I quote, "It is believed we have a drug problem of a flow of dangerous drugs in our county." He went on to say, "It is under control and we don't need any additional deputies assigned specifically to deal with the drug problem in our community." I think the recent bust that we both talked about confirms the flow of dangerous drugs in our county is real, and what we've been doing is not working. So I believe The increased population in our county will increase issues like the drug activity in our community. I do believe we need an additional deputy to handle the drug activity. And if it warrants, if calls rise, I would look to, and if needed, find money in the budget, work with the county supervisors, and add additional staff as needed.
Thank you. Mr. Vance, how do you plan to support, protect, and serve the people of color in our community and ensure their safety and equitable treatment?
Well, my belief is that every person in this community should be treated equally and fairly, no matter the color of your skin, your sexual preference, or where you're from. I believe that this is one of the most important tenets that we have as a law enforcement agency and as a law enforcement officer. Every person should be treated with dignity and respect, and under my leadership as sheriff, it starts at the top, and I will institute that, the tone of that, all the way down to every deputy, every jail staff member, everybody that works in this office.
Thank you. Mr. Richmond.
Let's take it back to the public safety aspect. We're all about maintaining the safety and the security of this county. There is no discrimination. I know at the nation right now, there's a lot of communities that are stirred up with riots and protests. We do not have it here. We've always maintained the safety and security of all citizens in Jefferson County. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Richmond, there is always pressure to reduce department spending. Where do you see that efficiencies could be gained, and would you make any specific cuts?
No, we operate pretty thin now. Most of our budget is made up by personnel. There's a few costs that fluctuate every year, and they fluctuate in the jail. It depends on how many people are coming in and out of that jail with medical costs and food costs. We have saved up to $110,000 in a year. Right now, we operate pretty thin with the maintenance cost of the building, with the maintenance cost of the vehicles, and with fuel. It depends on how much fuel we use every year. There's not a lot of room after personnel are paid. Now, the theory of adding another deputy is going to add another constant cost of $150,000 or more continuing every year. When we can operate like we are now, we do pay a little overtime, but we pay more in work holiday time than we do in overtime. And we're able to operate safely for the safety and security of everyone. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Vance.
Can you repeat the question just
I
to
sure
make sure
can.
I understand it?
There is always pressure to reduce department spending. Where do you see that efficiencies could be gained, and would you make any specific cuts?
Thank you. Yeah, I do think there are some efficiencies we can gain. I've talked over the last several months about two specific things that I believe that we can save the taxpayers' dollars, and in fact, reprioritize that money to adding the additional deputy that I'm talking about. The first is what I call unnecessary scheduled overtime. When our 5 administrators in our office schedule themselves for 9-hour shifts every day, 5 days a week, 260 days a year, that causes unscheduled, unnecessary overtime. In my opinion, there is no legitimate reason for them to be working 9-hour shifts outside of the norm. The rest of the office, all other employees in the sheriff's office work 8-hour shifts. So that 9-hour picks allows them to get overtime, and I believe that is wrong. And that's costing about $30,000 a year. There's been some debate about, it's really only $24,000. The overtime paid is $24,000, but when you start including the pension that's paid on top of that, the other rolled up employee costs, FICA, Social Security, it's closer to $30,000. Secondly, I believe we have a bloated jail administration. Thank you.
Thank you. And as a follow-up to that, Mr. Vance, and Mr. Richmond, you'll get a chance to follow this up as well. Conversely, if you, as sheriff, were granted a larger budget, where would you direct those dollars?
Well, obviously, I would look at our staffing and make sure that we have enough there. I think there is, again, a population's going out, we just talked about that, or going up, we just talked about that. Calls for service are going to go up. So I would look at staffing. The other thing I would look at seriously is the maintenance on our building. The Law Center is 20 years old this year. In fact, this month it opened up 20 years ago. The life cycle of the Law Center is such that things are going to have to start getting replaced. 20 years ago, there was some money left over when they issued the bonds, and I believe it was about $600,000. Don't quote me on that, but it was some like that, amount like that. That was put into a maintenance fund to pay for future maintenance. Great decision. But that money's been used over the years, and now we're down to less than $100,000. So how are we gonna start paying for maintenance that's not currently budgeted in the sheriff's office? We've been taking it out of that fund. So I think if we got additional funds, one thing I would do is look at replenishing that maintenance and making sure our Law Center is maintained like it should be.
Thank you. Mr. Richmond?
Well, as sheriff at this time, we do not need a larger budget. There are a couple things that never shut down with the sheriff's office. The jail operation never shuts down. The communications never shut down. The public safety aspect, the deputies never shut down, never stop 24/7 all year long. Currently, we're operating fine. As for maintenance of the building, in the last 8 years, the roof's been replaced, 13 heating and cooling units have been replaced, doors in the jail have been replaced, there's been offices remodeled, there's been overhead doors replaced, there's been concrete drives put in, and we've accomplished that with the budget we're currently operating under in the last 8 years, and still return money at the end of the budget year. Thank you.
Mr. Richmond, what are your personal core values? And if elected, how will these values directly influence your professional behavior?
Well, again, I've been in law enforcement a long time, and without that longevity in there, you really get an education for people. You see them at their worst times. I've seen people pull through over the years. They're the best peoples in our community. I really have faith in the ones that I have dealt with over the years, and it might involve criminal acts of stealing or drug addiction, but I still have that faith and believe in the people that we have in this community. And it's all about their safety and security along with everybody else. But I really believe I have faith in everybody that I have dealt with over the years and have seen more than enough that have come through and are model citizens today. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vance.
My core principles would be honesty, trust, and integrity. I believe that a sheriff, any law enforcement officer, has to have these as their core principle in order to be effective in their job. We do see people at their worst. But my approach to dealing with individuals comes from my Christian faith. My faith that all individuals are worthy, and I try to view that person the way that Jesus would view that person. We need to understand that when that person is having a bad day, or they're dealing with addiction, or whatever is they're dealing with that day that we're called into that situation, that inside they're a person of worth, and they need to be treated with dignity and respect. So I think that is a core principle of me, and I would instill that in our office. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Vance, and this is a long one, so I'm happy to repeat it if either of you need.
Okay.
Do you consider Jefferson County to have a substance abuse problem? And if so, what is your plan for the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department's involvement in addressing it? If you do not consider the county to have an issue with substance abuse, what do you believe has led to the successful prevention of this issue?
Okay, I think I get it, but you better repeat it.
No problem.
Okay.
Do you consider Jefferson County to have a substance abuse problem? If so, what is your plan for the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department's involvement in addressing it? If you do not consider the county to have an issue with substance abuse, what do you believe has led to the successful prevention of this issue?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I do think the county has a substance abuse problem. Again, the recent bust that we've just talked about should tell you that we have a flow of these drugs coming into our county. What I would do, again, I would have an additional deputy that's assigned to dealing with the flow of those drugs coming into our county, to do this surveillance work, to do the undercover work, the things that we need to do to stop the flow coming in. I'm not naive. I know we're not going to stop every drug from coming in, but I think we can and should do better at that. Also, I would work with the county attorney, I would work with our social service agencies, and I'd work with the court systems to come up with alternative means to deal and to help those people that find themselves addicted. Other counties have a drug court. You know, maybe we need to look at that and consider a drug court to help those that have substance abuse issues, rather than just throwing them in jail and not doing anything to help them with their substance abuse problem on an ongoing basis. That's not helping them, and it's costly to the taxpayers by having that person in our jail.
Thank you. Mr. Richmond, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, I'll be fine, I believe.
All right.
So there is a difference between drug enforcement and drug addiction. Obviously, my opponent didn't work years ago when we were chasing down meth labs, and we had to get trained in disposal and cleanup of the labs that were around this county. I'm not saying that we do not have drug addiction, but this is a national topic of discussion. We don't have what some of the other counties across the country are dealing with. We're nowhere near Lynn County or Des Moines County, the problems that they have. We have people in place that are chasing down the suppliers, the ones bringing it in, and that's a whole lot different than the user or the addict. The addict's going to find it somewhere. There was another point I wanted to make. But we're proactive in chasing them down, but we've networked over the years with surrounding agencies. We know where some of it's coming from. And that was proven here the other night with good old police work by the Fairfield Police Department. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Richmond, what are the current department policies for defining and responding to escalating situations? Do the current policies need revision, in your opinion? And if so, how would you change them?
Well, currently, and one of the things I'm pushing is offering the crisis intervention and de-escalation training that is going across our county and several counties in Iowa. We have a couple trained right now, but that's, as far as policies, no, I don't think there needs to be revision. We have a great team of deputies to do that. Over the years, and I'll go back to the 90s, it was kind of similar to the training we had. It was called verbal judo. Kind of the same concept it is today with de-escalation. So no, I don't believe that the current policies need any reviewing, but I'm going to push for more of the current crisis intervention with de-escalation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vance.
Yes. Again, through my campaign, I've been talking about de-escalation training that I believe we need in our office. I think having only 2 deputies trained in de-escalation techniques
Your mic is on.
is not adequate. We need to have every deputy and every jail staff trained in de-escalation techniques. I believe our policies should be reviewed on a constant basis. And by the way, there was a recent ad in a local newspaper that my opponent put out there that said that I've never been trained in de-escalation, or something in effect that I've never done de-escalation training. Well, that's because I've never been offered de-escalation training. Only 2 deputies in our office have been sent and offered de-escalation training. So one of the first things I will do is have every deputy and every jail staff trained in de-escalation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vance. Everyone has their own personal strengths and weaknesses. We've had a chance to hear about your strengths. In what areas do you anticipate needing personal growth in order to be successful?
Good question. I don't know how to answer that question, to be honest with you. We all have weaknesses, we all have strengths. I think that a weakness, I honestly can't answer that question.
Mr. Richmond.
Would you repeat the question?
I sure will. Everyone has their own personal strengths and weaknesses. We've had a chance to hear about your strengths. In what areas do you anticipate needing personal growth in order to be successful?
Well, what comes to my mind is one of my strengths could be my weakness. I'm awful trusting with people. I believe in everybody, but sometimes it can catch you maybe in a bad moment. But I do, maybe sometimes I'm not as guarded with some people, but which could be my weakness. So, but I work with everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Richmond, the Stand Your Ground law is relatively new, and the Iowa Supreme Court has made some clarification in recent years. As an officer entrusted with enforcing this law, what is your interpretation of it? And in what situations, if any come to mind, do you feel the law still lacks clarity?
Well, as a sheriff, I'd be a constitutional sheriff, just like I mentioned in my opening. But I believe in stand your ground. It was 2011 that we went shall issue in the state of Iowa. Obviously, I signed multiples of those per day, and they're only disqualified for a number of reasons. I believe in the right to bear arms, And I have no problem with that. And I believe in stand your ground if you are offended inside your home. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vance, your response?
Yeah. I will enforce the stand your ground legislation and law. Now keep in mind that stand your ground doesn't mean that you can just shoot somebody as they enter your house. The stand your ground legislation that we have is a defense for that. Someone can still be arrested and charged with a crime, be it assault, murder, whatever that would be, but they would have that as a defense. Now, that defense can be put forward before they're charged, and the county attorney working with sheriff's office may decide not to charge that person because they feel they have an adequate defense under stand your ground, or they may go ahead and charge that person. But it must be understood that the stand your ground is a defense for actions you take if you protect your home or your property.
Thank you. Mr. Vance, among the many events in 2020 that have shaped this year for the American people, our nation was deeply affected by the release of the video showing the arrest and subsequent death of George Floyd. How did you personally respond to this footage and the events surrounding it?
I was appalled. That was murder. That officer acted with malice, and it was inappropriate. Unfortunately, that puts a stain on all of us. There are a lot of good law enforcement officers working today in this country. But there are some, and we've seen examples. Officer Shaven, I believe was his name, that put his knee on the neck of George Floyd, killing him right in front of all of us. I was disturbed, and I don't ever want to see that happen again. No law enforcement academy in this country, as far as I know, trains that you put your knee on someone's neck until they can't breathe anymore. And I think I'm just going to put, Bart and I have had a lot of disagreements on over this campaign, but I think we can probably agree on this one, that it was inappropriate and it was appalling. I don't know how else to say it.
Thank you. Mr. Richmond, what was your reaction?
Obviously, when I first seen it, I didn't jump to any conclusions like the rest of the country. Obviously, there was some things going on with George Floyd himself. There might have been quite a few drugs in him. I don't condone the fact that an officer was kneeling on the neck. Absolutely not. I don't know if he needed medical attention when they got to him, but I didn't react like the rest of the country. I want the rest of the story before I react. Thank you.
Thank you. As a follow-up to that question, or as a related question to that, Mr. Richmond, what would you do in the tragic circumstances should an officer under your supervision be engaged in either shooting an unarmed citizen or a situation similar to George Floyd's?
Well, obviously, in any situation, whether there's a shooting death or some other death, that deputy or correctional staff would be put on administrative leave. We're going to call in a state agency. They're going to investigate it. They're going to handle the situation. They're going to thoroughly investigate it, and they're going to find out what happened. And until we know that deputy correctional staff would be on administrative leave. Thank you.
Mr. Vance.
Well, I'm going to go back to the previous question for just a moment. I'm disappointed that Bart couldn't say that what happened with George Floyd was appalling. To address someone that would do that in our office, they'd be put on administrative leave. We would have an outside agency investigate the incident. And importantly, the sheriff's office would be transparent and open with the public about the investigation and the circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you. One last question, gentlemen, and then we'll open for closing remarks. Mr. Vance, if you are elected, how should the constituents of Jefferson County measure whether or not you were successful during your term?
I believe that a good measure of my success would be how I completed those things I've talked about in this campaign. Did we address the drug activity? Did we lower the drug activity in our county? Did we give the taxpayers the most for their dollar? Did we implement a formal training program so that our deputies can perform their duties in a manner that our citizens expect? Did I enact a community engagement program that includes a Citizens Advisory Council and a Citizens Police Academy? I believe I should be measured by what I'm saying in this campaign. Thank you.
Mr. Richmond.
Well, obviously, as sheriff, I mean, one of the gauges and the public wants to understand is the budget every year. Obviously, we've maintained that budget the last 8 years and have given back money every year. So, you know, there's kind of a lot of other fluff to add, you know, but a budget is a good indicator. Also, is another good indicator is your staffing. If you can retain the longevity and the experience of your staffing from deputies to jail staff, you cannot replace that experience. That's added cost when you're hiring, that's added cost with more training, and you'll never replace that. Obviously, another good indicator is crime, overall crime. You can gauge that by drug activity, you can gauge it by stealing, any of the crimes that's going on. I see it. But you threw me off. But obviously that's what we're working towards, the safety and security for everybody. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll now open for closing remarks, and Mr. Richmond, you get to go first. You have 2 minutes. Thank you both.
Thank you. Again, Bart Richmond, I'm Chief Deputy and candidate for County Sheriff. So since 1992, I've spent the better part of my life serving the citizens of Jefferson County. I'm not a politician, nor do I desire to be one. But I do want to be your next sheriff. Since '92, I have done one thing: law enforcement. I've come to know many of the citizens of Jefferson County. I've done my best to make myself available to them and their needs. In 2013, Sheriff Greg Morton and I were fortunate enough to inherit a great group of personnel. We have continued to make small changes and improvements to our office and make it better to support the needs of our residents. We have unified our office as a team, and we take pride in our employees. The members of the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office work well together, work well with supporting agencies, and are dedicated to the citizens of this county. It is my goal to keep this alive. For the last 8 years, I've dedicated my career to learning the ins and outs of what it takes to operate the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. From budgeting to training to managing personnel and equipment, it is a very complex job, a job I am qualified to do and a job that I want to continue to do. It is my job to ensure that our office is properly trained, properly equipped, and properly staffed to serve the citizens of Jefferson County in a safe, secure, and professional manner. And based on what I see and hear, we do that well. I think one of the biggest challenges to law enforcement today is mental health. As sheriff, I will increase mental health training to add to our current crisis intervention de-escalation. I'm not in the business of making promises that I cannot keep, but I'll make this promise to you. If you want a sheriff who is dedicated to all citizens of Jefferson County, who makes himself available to you, listens to you, and who cares about you and maintains the
Thank you, Chief
safety
Deputy
and
Richmond.
security to pursue happiness,
We appreciate
then
your
vote Bart
statements tonight.
Richmond.
Deputy Vance, thank you.
I decided to run for sheriff because I believe it's time for a fresh perspective in leadership within the sheriff's office. I have the diverse background in law enforcement, public safety, budget and administrative management, and community relations that is necessary to lead the sheriff's office. My 7 years as a deputy, along with 30 years of public service, gives me unique qualifications to take on the role of Jefferson County Sheriff. It has been nearly 40 years since there has been a contested general election race for sheriff. This has led to complacency and a sense of entitlement. I believe the citizens of Jefferson County deserve a choice. I believe we need to make changes in areas of training, pursuing drug dealers, budgeting, and community engagement to make the sheriff's office more accountable and transparent. This election is about the status quo versus change. If it's business as usual you want, then my opponent is your guy. If you want change that will make the sheriff's office serve you better and a sheriff who will serve with honesty and integrity, then I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. At this time, we will take a short break while we reset the stage for our County Board of Supervisors candidates. May I remind you that the Fairfield Arts and Convention Center does require masks as you're moving about the space. Once you are seated once more in your seats, masks are optional. Thank you.
Middletown, I'm your third, so, but I'm gonna let you pick now to see the closing arguments, which order we go in.
I got number one.
Okay.
Just, that makes me feel good, I guess. Oh,
How are you doing?
I am doing good.
Good to see you. You don't have to wear it now. You sure? Have, oh, yeah, sure. How you been getting along?
Reasonably well.
You here tonight? What kind of surgery? Oh, nothing real good there. Yeah, you'll be. That's what I need, that's what I need, thank you.
I got them all over my garage and the beer bottles like.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. I
You guys ain't all the crowd left. I ain't gonna have no party at all.
knew you would appreciate it.
Well, you bet, you bet. After tonight, I'll need it, for sure.
You might.
Oh, man, the water girl. Perfect.
That's all right. I have plenty of
Awful nice day. Temperature's perfect. Perfect bean cut day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beans are just barely ready. Cut them a little bit, they 14, 15. I tell you what, our corn is a lot better than, I mean, it's a lot better. It's really good.
Better than what?
Yeah, it's good as I thought. Soybeans, really, just very good. We raise a lot of corn on corn and kicking right in there. No, we don't feed, all our grain goes to either Big River or Heartland here, and we just custom feed, so they just bring the feed out to us. Yeah, well, I fed hogs years ago, and then I quit for a long time, and then when I took my boat,
She's ready.
all right.
Well, whatever.
Thank you for joining us once more as we reconvene tonight's candidate forum with the candidates for Jefferson County Board of Supervisors, Dee Sandquist, Keith Vladimir, Nick Adam, and Susie Drish. Once more, candidates will have 2 minutes to make their opening and closing remarks and 90 seconds to answer each question. Question rotation was designed to be as equitable as possible, and the order of opening and closing statements was determined by a drawing. The opening statements will commence with Mr. Adam, followed by Ms. Drish, followed by Mr. Vladimir, followed by Ms. Sandquist. Mr. Adam, when you're ready.
Well, I'm Nick Adam from Batavia, Iowa. I've lived in Batavia, Iowa my whole life, the area. I am a middle son of Walter and Mary Catherine Adam, and I'm from a family of 13 children. And I graduated from Cardinal High School in 1973, and I was married shortly after and have 2 sons and have a daughter. And today they're my partners in my farming operation. And in 1973, I started farming and raising a family. My operation consists of raising, at that time, raising corn, soybeans, and I fed cattle. Okay. And I worked with the the DOT to put the exit ramp in Batavia, Iowa, because I built a convenience store there that I needed that in the process of building a convenience store. So I've worked with the government agencies. They took my plans to their paper. And I built a mini storage in Batavia, Iowa. And I built 7 homes in Batavia, Iowa, new homes. In 2004, I married Tina Wright, and she's got 2 sons. In 2004, my farming operation, I took in my 2 sons as partners, and at that time, my operation changed gears a little bit. We was row cropping, and we built 4 confinement hogs, and we feed for JBS in Tumwa, Iowa. And we also have like 4 full-time employees in my operation. I've served on many boards. I've served on Church Council, Lions Club, Farm Bureau, Corn Growers, Knights of Columbus, and the Soybean Association. I've worked with many government agencies like the USDA, FSA, and the DOT, and the RCS in my farming operation. I've worked with all my life
Thank you, Mr. Adam.
cutting budgets.
All right, Ms. Drish.
Hello, thanks for coming tonight. My name is Susie Drish, and I'm a lifelong resident of this county. I was raised on a farm and attended school in Pleasant Plain, Iowa. I later graduated from Fairfield Community Schools. I went to Iowa State University and graduated. I majored in zoology. I minored in chemistry, animal science, and physics. After moving back to Southeast Iowa, my first job was with the Ottumwa school system, where I administered and implemented a program for youth. I worked with at-risk youth in the community, and we taught them things about how to fill out a resume, how to fill out an application, how to shake somebody's hand, all the things that anybody needs when they first start entering that world, the world of work. From there, I started working with Indian Hills Community College, and I worked there for 39 years. And again, it was something that played on that. I worked with at-risk youth, welfare recipients, dislocated workers, and I helped them through many different ways, whether it was a resume, filling out an application, to a work experience, to an on-the-job training, to classroom training. I've helped many folks in this community and the other communities that I served. The counties that I had were Wapello, Davis, Van Buren, Jefferson, and Keokuk. During the course of that job, I also had to deal with a lot of the chambers of commerce, the FIDA organizations, the employers. It was really important to deal with the employers because you had to know, if you were helping people get a job, what positions they hired for, what they looked for when they hired somebody. Again, this was very rewarding. Over those years, I probably worked with thousands of people and spent millions of dollars on their behalf to retrain and educate those folks. It was very rewarding for me. I'm also involved, I have to stop now.
Thank you, Ms. Drish. Mr. Vladimir.
Hi. My name is Keith Vladimir, and I want to take this opportunity to thank the Chamber and the other sponsors for the opportunity for me to speak with you tonight. Now, I started working in this area of Fairfield to Ottumwa about 1997. The consulting engineering firm I worked for at the time was hired to do the preliminary survey for US 34 from west of Fairfield to US 34 north of Ottumwa at the airport. My part of the project was related to the boundary work, location of the property lines, affected by the highway project and the right-of-way plans. I was laid off at the firm I was working at in Cedar Rapids, and there was an opening here at the DOT, and I was hired as a district land surveyor. That was 17 years ago. That's when my wife and her 2 dogs and I moved here, and my wife was from Mason City, but her family has roots down here in southern Iowa and northern Missouri. I retired from the DOT 10 years ago. I have a degree in civil engineering.
I have worked in the engineering field, particularly in land surveying and highway and county road design. I have held a professional land surveyor's license in 4 different states. I am a member, oh crap.
Thank you, Mr. Vladimir. Ms. Sandquist. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dee Sandquist, and I'd like to thank the Chamber, FIDA, and Fairfield Arts and Convention Center for hosting the forum. And thank you, the public, for letting me serve my first term as a county supervisor. I grew up on a family farm here in Jefferson County, moved after college, and returned in 2008 to help my mother. My husband and I farm east of Fairfield with the goal of preserving soil and water health. My career experience has been mostly in managing people and services in healthcare in Iowa and the Pacific Northwest. I have a master's degree in management from Iowa State and am a former small business owner. Because I've lived elsewhere, I have a true understanding of the diversity of this community in our county. I'm known as a supervisor that asks for results. What's the result for this money that we're spending? How are we going to measure it? I participate on over 12 committees and work with over 25 other county supervisors throughout the area. I maintain tact and composure in stressful situations. Some of the results are that we paved over 15 miles of road this past summer. We were able to save a lot of money by bundling the bid and doing it this summer. I've worked a lot with economic development, workforce, mental health, and worked with food insecurity and bridges out of poverty in the community. Supervisors are leading by example this year, and we reduced our own budget by $150,000 because we realized that people are on fixed incomes. I believe working with others to accomplish more, and I have a diverse background for a diverse county. I'm a catalyst that bridges the rural, the farm, city, and academic communities. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. First question, Ms. Sandquist. County supervisors are often viewed as managers of roads, bridges, and budget. Do you think the role of supervisor extends beyond that? And if so, how?
Definitely extends beyond that. I can tell you the reason that we're considered the role for roads is because over a quarter of the budget and close to half is on roads, not quite, and that's a large part of what we do because we're responsible for the county part. Other parts are economic development, and I tend to see everything through that lens, whether it's housing. I've been active in the child care initiative going on in our community through providing funds through one of the committees I'm on through Early Childhood Iowa to provide a third-party independent study that showed we needed over 500 more spaces. Through that, we've already increased 100, and more are planned with the new center. We also, mental health, I've been active in that. That's a large part of what we need. As we heard previously, it affects everything we do. It affects substance abuse. It affects people in our jails. It affects everyday life. I believe mental health is as important as physical health. I've worked with people on fixed incomes and have led an initiative to hold a Bridges Out of Poverty forum at the high school auditorium where over 420 people attended. And then COVID hit, so we're just getting back to doing some post-planning in that category. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vladimir, same question.
Yes, I am of the opinion that the supervisors are involved in more, the supervisors are involved in more committees than people think about. I think Dee mentioned that there's 44 committees that the supervisors are divided up into. So there's a lot more involved with it. Has to be with some of the sewage problems here, the ambulance service, some of the 1015 transit, and I wish I knew more, but that's all I know. But I know they are involved with more than just what you see in the roads, bridges, and building maintenance. So that's.
Thank you, Mr. Vladimir. Mr. Adam.
Yes, I believe that the supervisors have a lot more to do with than just the roads. They got mental health they deal with, they got budgets, they work with the money, they work with the income and expenses of the county, and they're responsible for the sheriff's department and to see that all those departments get their budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Drish.
You know, I do think the supervisors are involved in way more committees than people realize. You know, whether,
Your mic.
and I'd like to thank the present supervisors for doing such nice paving jobs. You know? Let me start over. I think these supervisors are involved in many committees. If you look at 44 committees, then there are at least 13 to 14 committees each, which would take a lot of time. You know, whether it's the roads or mental health or the economic development or the RUS, there's just a lot going on that folks don't know, and these people should be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vladimir, this question will start with you. Jefferson County experienced a population growth of 8.6% from 2010 to 2019. How will you strategically prepare the community for continued growth?
Well, that is one of my concerns, and I think this, even for this county, we need to, I'm trying to think of the words, we need to work with other counties in the area to attract businesses, to help for education of the workforce. This area is not very, very populated. And so you're going to have to work with other counties, just like Winnebago. Winnebago and Forest City does not have that big a pool to draw from, but they have a big enough pool from other parts of northern Iowa to furnish the workforce that they have. So it has to be counties, cities all working together, and all the other counties joining together to attract new business, whether they wind up in this county or another county. It's all going to.
Thank you. Mr. Adam.
Yes, I believe that this county could grow a lot more. I think that we as a county, you know, I ask myself, why would we move to Fairfield, Iowa? Why would we move to Jefferson County? And because we have a safe community, our taxes are fair. I feel like that we should as a county step up to the plate and to help more growth. If you got people here, you got people that want to bring business here. And I believe that we should give a $2,000 tax credit to every family that wants to bring their family to Jefferson County for a 3-year tax abatement of $6,000, because I don't think there's any other county that offers this. I think there's some incentives for the cities, but I believe that when I was growing up that there was a farmstead on every 160 acres, and now we're bulldozing them in, closing them up, and I believe that if we have growth in this county, we won't have to raise taxes. We will make the county flourish. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Drish.
If our population has increased 8.6%, it makes me think back 20 years ago when we had all the industry in this town, whether it was Meritor, Malibu, Plexiglass, or Aquachain and Cable, which we don't have anymore. Back then, Mount Pleasant, Henry County had it wasn't a very industrialized county. Then Walmart came to town. I'll go back to, we need employees. We need a workforce. we get a workforce, maybe we can attract some businesses. If we attract the businesses, it will help the people move to Fairfield. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sandquist. Yes, I
Repeat
will.
the question.
Jefferson County experienced a population growth of 8.6% from 2010 to 2019. How will you strategically prepare the community for continued growth?
For continued growth, first, please complete your census if you haven't, because that affects all the funding from the state and to counties and to the cities. So please complete that. As far as helping manage the growth, I think we need to update our comprehensive plan. The county hasn't done that since the 1990s. The city just completed it, and it would make sense for us to work with Fairfield and see what we can collaborate with and do together so that we can get more economies of scale as we do things like that to improve living arrangements. We know we need housing. Childcare is well underway, and we need a workforce. So my vision is to get the mental health, the workforce, and substance abuse services, and work also with the court system so that we can prepare people to go from jail, not to their original place where they might reoffend, but have supportive services and maybe even some transitional housing to get them services they need so that they can get into the workforce and help support our employers. We also need to support tourism because many times people have a good feeling by coming to Fairfield and they decide to move here, and then that will help us continue to manage our growth if we're an inviting, well-kept community.
Thank you, candidates. Mr. Adam, how would you increase the county's general fund revenues without raising property taxes? Or conversely, if you think the county needs to decrease general fund expenditures, how would you accomplish that?
Well, number one, I don't think you can cut taxes. I think that taxes are inevitably going to stay the same, or they're going to. But I want to, on my docket, I wanted to say that we held taxes at a bay, and I believe that if we go after businesses, because I think the next 3 to 5 years you're going to see a tremendous growth to the rural Iowa, and I believe that if we offer some incentives for people to come here, that they'll work out of their houses, they'll build houses here because we live in a safe community. So I believe if we have people moving in here, we don't have to raise taxes. I think we got to focus on growth. Everybody wants to say, well, let's cut taxes, let's cut taxes. I don't believe you can't cut people's salaries and run, you can't cut the sheriff's budget, you can't cut those budgets and still have the same kind of security. So I believe we have to grow.
Thank you. Ms. Drish.
Would you repeat the question?
I sure will. How would you increase the county's general fund revenues without raising property taxes? Or conversely, if you think the county needs to decrease general fund expenditures, how would you accomplish that?
I'm not sure taxes would be that easy to decrease. I do think maybe all the departments in the county should look at their budgets, see where they can trim things just a little bit. Again, I look at the workforce. If you have folks coming to town and moving here for employment, they're going to eat out. They're going to come to the Sondheim. You've got to have something that makes folks want to move here, whether that's employment or the entertainment or coming back to live with their kids. I'm not sure. I do think that because of COVID, we're going to be maybe surprised at how we end up, because so many folks are going to start. Employers right now are having people work at home, and maybe what's going to happen? Are they going to go back to their place of business, or employers going to realize that they don't have to have those folks? They could just actually stay home and do the same job. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sandquist.
We need to do both. We need to increase the revenues to the general fund and then also look and see how we can most effectively and efficiently use the funds we have. We know that a lot of the property values over the past several years due to the state mandates have increased, so we need to work extra hard on the budget side to recognize that so that people are able to afford to stay in their homes that are on a fixed income. We need to bring in businesses and support the ones we have, and we've already addressed that we do need all the amenities, workforce, childcare, housing to make that happen. Part of what's increasing the tax base has been some housing that has happened over the past several years that have increased it. And we need houses that are in the $130,000 to $160,000 range to be affordable. Again, supporting economic development and having a workforce that we need. Ways that we could potentially reduce taxes are discretionary expenses, which we don't have many because we cut a lot of those this past year. And so, for example, we have about $30,000 that we budget for the library that's above our required amount, and so we would have to look at making those hard choices.
Thank you. Mr. Vladimir.
Your mic is off.
Since I moved here, I've discovered taxes are very high here. It's a little bit more than a retired person can live on if they keep it the way they are. But I don't see how we can, the way the budgets are and the way the tax base is here, I don't see how we can really increase the taxes because there is a cap. There is a cap on the amount that the supervisors can raise every year. It's a 2% cap unless something else comes in and it creates a better tax base. Decrease the taxes. The supervisors approve budgets. They approve the budgets of the other offices that are in basically the courthouse. The auditor, the recorder, I don't even know if the clerk of the court, the treasurer's office, they approve their budgets, and the only control that they have is just approving the budget, whether they can afford it or not. So a lot of the taxes that people think that the supervisors or control that the supervisors have, I don't feel like that they have. So.
Thank you. Ms. Drish, do you think the city of Fairfield should implement extraterritorial zoning? And how do you think such a practice would affect the county?
I suppose if they did annex more into the city, it would raise the city's revenue. It would then decrease the county's revenue. And I personally would like to see things stay as they are. I don't feel that right now there's a need to annex stuff. Just taken from one to give to the other one. I would not be for that.
Thank you. Ms. Sandquist.
Okay, the question was about the city has discussed possibly doing extraterritorial zoning, and that is their prerogative because we are one of 8 counties that is not zoned in the state, and so if a county does not have zoning, the city can have a 2-mile radius around that. What I need to have a position on that is a common definition. I failed to find what the exact definition is because I've talked to a number of individuals and a couple of attorneys, and I still don't have a definition that we can really know what it means. What I think people think it means is that it would give the city a say in what happens 2 miles outside their city limit. How that happens, of course, is the challenge, because the devil's always in the detail of what exactly does that mean. Would it mean that they could tell a farmer what to do? Probably not, because again, ag land can't be zoned in the state of Iowa. So it just gives them a seat at the table. However, again, we need a common definition. That's just kind of what I've gleaned from several conversations, but it's not by any means a definite answer as far as the definition.
Mr. Vladimir.
I have never been a fan of a municipality extending their control or influence outside of their city limits. Now, the statute allows the cities to, within 2 miles of outside of their city limits, to exert some kind of control. And I don't see why the cities, have to influence parts of the county that are not under their control. So that's my position.
Mr. Adam.
Yeah, I believe that it really, as a county supervisor, I believe that the city should have a lot of influence what they want to do, and I believe that the things that if we do that and vote for that, then I believe that the agricultural part of Jefferson County should be grandfathered in, that you can't change what they've done their whole life. And I believe that I think it would help with growth in Fairfield, Iowa, really. I believe that. So I guess I would say I'm somewhat in favor of it. But I think it has to be, the city has to be a big part of it.
Thank you. Mr. Vladimir, with growing numbers of non-farming people living in the county, what are the challenges facing supervisors, and what would you do to manage those challenges?
I can't give you a good answer because I've never thought about it. The mental health is a problem that would have to be addressed. The medical care would have to be addressed, plus good living conditions, sanitary living conditions, providing portable water, and just a better environment. I guess I could call it a clean neighborhood. If everybody would clean up their trash, or basically junkyards were eliminated. Oh, I guess that's my thoughts on that.
Thank you. Ms. Drish.
Repeat the question.
You bet. With growing numbers of non-farming people living in the county, what are the challenges facing supervisors, and what would you do to manage those challenges?
You know, I think the first thing I would do is listen to the folks. Listen to what people say. Listen to what their issues are. You know, it would present, let's say I live in the country, and I do. If I lived closer to Fairfield and somebody wanted to annex me into the city, I would be a little concerned. But it's really boils down to listening to people's issues and what concerns them and figuring out things as a whole. And it might involve compromise. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sandquist.
I do agree, listening to people, I can tell you that most of that is state-driven and state-regulated. The challenge is when you live in the country, as I do, you know, most people don't want to be told what to do. They choose to live in the country until something affects them adversely. Then they want their neighbor to do what they want. So I think we all need to figure out a way to work together, and since the state has taken most of that right away from the counties, that means we have to do it ourselves. One example of something I did again through economic development is continually work to try to bring this county together since we are so diverse. So we had a group of about 22 individuals from throughout the county with traditional farmers, and then with some of the people who have some of the food businesses in town to just get to meet and know one another. And they spent 2 days, 2 different times, and worked on a project for what we could do in working together toward a common goal. And I think the best thing was hearing the conversations during the break about people learning about the people in the county that are here that may be different from them. So that's what we need to do, more of that.
Thank you. Mr. Adam.
Yeah, I believe that we need to educate the people in our communities better. I believe that, we fought hard for a company that spent $27 million in our county, and we as a county did, my understanding, because I talked to them this week, they said, well, they give a TIF for about a quarter mile of road, and they pay Jefferson County $320,000 a year in taxes, that before that they wasn't getting nothing. And so I believe that we have to promote growth in that. They told me they'd like to build another 8 grain bins, spend another $10 million. Are we going to promote that, or are we going to fight that? That's what the question I have is what can we do to offer these people to come into our community? Here we're building all these companies are building in the county. They should be building in the city. They should be building in the city limits. And we're not doing a good job promoting what we're doing as a community, I believe.
Thank you. Ms. Drish. What initiatives can the county and the city of Fairfield work together on? And what do you see as the value in these collaborations?
I think whenever 2 different folks collaborate, it's got to be for the good, because you're listening to all aspects of what's going on. What can we do? If I look at, do we want to build a business? I know right north of where Meritor plant was, there's a company there that's actually, I'm not sure in the city limits or out, but if you look at, in fact, in Batavia, I had heard that there was a, which is west of here, they wanted to build a harness track. In other words, bring harness racing and a stable and training to the Batavia area, which is what they used to do in Eldon. Maybe we should consider stuff like that. We have to do things that both the community, whether it's rural or in town, agree on. We just have to. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sandquist. Of course. What initiatives can the county and the city of Fairfield work together on, and what do you see as the value in those collaborations?
I think there's several, and some of them we may not know. I'll tell you about some I know we have worked on. That is the ambulance. We worked on a spec building with economic development together. We worked on the 227th Street interchange together. We share roads and who takes care of what roads, because it wouldn't make sense for the county to do one lane and the city do another when we have some of these roads that we share, like 32nd, Walton Road, and some of those. So the 2 engineers sit down and agree on how we're going to work together. Things I think we could work together on is a sports complex. I think that would bring a lot of revenue to our community. It also is good for kids, and it saves our own parents driving to far-off places for ball games and things like that. And again, the comprehensive plan. I think by looking through the comprehensive plan and figuring out what we can do together, and I think there'll be quite a few things, we'll be able to accomplish more. I know the city put parts of their Go Green plan through their comprehensive plan. There's things that we could also do, or at least should look at. And I'm all for that. I know in the past I talked to their former city administrator about sharing an HR person. So a lot of possibilities.
Thank you. Mr. Adam.
Yeah, I think that the county and between the county and the city should have a 5-year plan or a plan together every year how they're going to move forward together. And I really think some of the thing that's been going on in Fairfield, Iowa, that I've been hearing that we're as a county, the county taxpayers are paying for buildings to be built in economical development in Jefferson County. And I'm not sure that we should be entering into something that is the city's responsibility instead of the county's. And it kind of frustrates me that, and also, I don't think the city wants to bring a horse track to Fairfield, Iowa. I don't think we want livestock that close to our city or Batavia or anywhere else. All the conflicts that I've heard in the last 5 years about livestock in the city. So I'm in favor of working with the city and having a plan together how we can grow together, but I don't want to invest in the city of Fairfield as the taxpayers' dollars.
Mr. Vladimir.
We're not enforcing.
Yes. Well, as far as initiatives, basically everybody has to work together. Whether it's, as far as I'm concerned, bringing in businesses, education, runoff from the fields, sewage from the town, and land development, which is one of the things. It's one of them things. I don't know about initiative, but we all have to learn. We all have to learn to work together, which is all part of the initiative. When somebody comes up with an idea, you just can't shoot it down, and you have to listen to other people. So whether it's the roads, the ambulance service, mental health, even like I said, runoff from the fields, you all just have to work together. That's how I've always seen things. People have to work together, come up with ideas. So.
Thank you. Ms. Sandquist. Growing our local workforce is a critical need for current businesses and industry within Jefferson County. Recent studies, especially one published by the National Governors Association, indicate that arts, culture, and tourism industries play a key role in attracting and retaining talent, especially in rural communities. Is there merit in county support for these industries?
Tourism is kind of the front porch of what brings people here or what might bring a business here. So tourism is very important. Fairfield and Jefferson County are known as a unique and fun place to visit. And so, yes, I think we would more recoup dollars. I know the city and county already get the local option sales tax funding, and most of the counties goes to property tax relief. But if we bring in more tourism, more dollars would be available through that, plus it gives people a place to come. They'll say, hey, I like that town. It's small. Look at all the amenities they have. And there's a lot of variety, whether you're an entrepreneur or want to work in a large business, for people to work. So again, it comes back to the basics. We need to market our community, ourselves, and our diversity, which appeals to a lot of people, and the quality of life that we have here. And we can accomplish that by working together and increasing the workforce, whether it's bringing in new talent and also supporting the ones that we have here. So there's several ways we can grow the workforce. I propose that we drive economic growth by supporting existing businesses also.
Thank you. Mr. Adam.
You know, that's a tough question because I'm not very well educated on what tourism there is in Jefferson County, but I don't see Jefferson County being a big tourist attraction town. I just don't think we have assets. We don't have caves. We don't have lakes. We probably never will. Have that in our county. But I believe that we can attract people by putting incentives for people to come here and see what we have. I really don't know if there's a need, a budget to bring in tourists to Fairfield, Iowa. I don't know all the tourist things to see. There's the Polishville Church. There's some things like that, but I just don't believe that will ever be that won't be our market of people tourism. Anyway.
Mr. Vladimir. I sure will. Growing our local workforce is a critical need for current businesses and industry within Jefferson County. Given the recent research which shows a direct correlation between arts and culture and tourism industries in attracting and retaining talent, especially in rural communities, is there merit in county support for these industries?
Well, even if it's verbal support, that would be, the county can have that. And as far as tourism, promoting tourism, there are some things in the county that are marketable. When I moved here, I found out that there is a very creative group of people here in this town. And they do some good artwork, and they have the Friday art walk, and those should be promoted somehow, whether it's advertisement in local, state, or national magazines or periodicals that relate to art, which we already have here, and I think that could be supported. Like I said, I don't know if I said I'm a member of the Mazda Barn. That's another thing that we advertise within the state or nationally through periodicals that relate to barns. And that, I think, other people in town don't know that exists. And other things, I can't think of anything else other than
Ms. Drish.
Jefferson County is a very rural county. We are a very diverse county. We're kind of an anomaly as far as the rural counties go. We do need to grow our workforce because we need to get those employers or businesses to come to town to employ our folks. The reason those folks will move to this town is because of the diversity, because of the restaurants and the culture that this community has. I still think it goes back to just, growing our workforce. You can go to employers in town and drive through their parking lots and see that you don't see Jefferson County places a lot. You see a lot of Van Buren, Washington, Henry, and Wapello County, which means we're helping those communities because their folks are coming here to work and taking that money back there. We need to grow our own economic development. Thank you.
Mr. Adam, what else would you do to improve the business climate in Jefferson County in order to strengthen existing businesses and attract new ones?
Well, I think that it's a game. You have to offer companies incentives to come here. You have to give them tax abatements. You have to give them something, because if it's a big enough company, somebody else is going to do it. So if we're going to grow in this county, we got to be proactive out there, and we got to go after companies that want to be. I don't think people are going to come here without us going after them. And I believe that we need, in the county, we need to have somebody in the county going after some of that, and let people know that we have some incentives for business to come here, because we've lost so much in the last 20 years in Jefferson County that it's going to be hard to get them back unless we have a workforce. And that's why I believe is we have to get housing. We have to build houses. That's what we need to do. We need to offer some kind of incentives from the city to the county to grow and put people here. If you put people here, you're going to put them to, the jobs will come, but I don't think they'll come unless you have the workforce here. And it's obviously, I see a lot of the companies around in Fairfield, Iowa that are begging for workers. And we don't have enough to offer them to bring them people to Jefferson County, Iowa. But I believe in the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to have people coming from New York, Chicago, Texas, California. I think we'll have people coming from all over because we have a safe environment. We have fair taxes. We got a good police department.
Thank you. Mr. Vladimir. Yes, I will. What else would you do to improve the business climate in Jefferson County in order to strengthen existing businesses and attract new ones?
This seems to be a common theme here tonight about businesses and always taxes. Like I said, you always have to work with people. You're always going to have some kind of tax incentive to attract businesses. And you don't, and I'm talking about the small businesses. If somebody came and employed 10 people, that would be better than nothing. Or one town in southeast Iowa got 25 people for employment, which I think is really great. If this town got 25 people, that would be just great. And you have to promote the quality of life. You have to promote the quality of life. And it's hard for me, it's hard for the county to do some things to help the city, because they're two different entities. And basically, as far as I'm concerned, the county can help in the county, and it can work with the cities to promote growth, but that's it. I don't know what more you could do. Other towns, you have.
Thank you. Ms. Drish.
I don't think it's just up to the supervisors. I would like to see the FIDA board, the Chamber of Commerce, the mayor, the supervisors, maybe get together some employers from this community and ask the employers what they think. Because the more folks you have, you're going to get some good ideas. Thank you.
Ms. Sandquist.
Susie, you took my answer. I was just going to say, we need to ask the businesses what they need and what they want. Because first and foremost, we need to take care of the businesses we have. We know they need a workforce, so let's solve that. Let's work together. Let's think outside the box. Again, if we can get some of these people that are sitting in jail to be functional so that they can show up to work on time, be sober, and hold down a job, that would be a huge help to the employers that need workers. We need to come together as a community so when a business wants to come here, we have accurate information and that we find a common goal so that we don't scare the business off, because it's so hard to come to this county because we can't agree on things. So that's where our diversity can work against us. So we really need to all work together to find that common goal and how we can make that happen, and we can. I've always found in difficult situations, once you can agree on the goal, it's not that difficult to get there, but the hard part is let's agree on the goal and what we really want as a community. And that's going to take every small town, every business, and everybody working together. When we can start to work on the tax thing is I really, if I get reelected, want to host all the taxing entities so that we can think of the overall tax structure and how what one does affects the others.
Thank you, candidates. Mr. Adam, if you are elected as supervisor, how should the constituents of Jefferson County measure whether or not you are successful during your term?
Well, number one, if we can not raise taxes, that would be one huge, big deal. Live within our means. I believe that if we can manage things like, I've never heard this brought up in Jefferson County, is about comp time, about mental health. All I hear is what we just throw them a certain amount of money, and I'd like to see their budget where it's going and what we can do to work with mental health in our children 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th grade, because those are going to be the big problems down the road. And some of those things I think that and I think that our county, if we had a 5-year plan, that we could work together and live by it, instead of, well, somebody says we have to do this, somebody says we have to do this, well, we don't have any money, so how do you answer that? You know, usually when it comes from up above, they give us a certain time frame to get there, and we don't have to jump as soon as they say jump. I mean, so those are the things that I believe that we could improve on.
Ms. Sandquist.
The question was how to measure success. I think that probably varies to every single voter. So I would say let's look on how we measure it. I measure it by, do we have a well-connected, thriving community? Do we have the basics? We know we need rural broadband, so how do we do that? We have some phone lines already. Is there a way we can maximize some fiber optics, get some grants, and at least get part of the county wired? And again, focus on what we have in common, agree on some goals. This goes back to strategic planning, update the comprehensive plan, work with the outlying communities. We know we have a problem with poverty and food insecurity, so let's work on that. And again, that oftentimes meaning let's get people the skills they need to go to the next level and be successful. That's how I would measure success, and honestly, it's one conversation at a time. What always amazes me, how just having one conversation can be a catalyst for change, and that's what we need more of. The challenge is how to make that happen. I think through COVID, obviously, we've not been able to meet in groups as much, but one of the things we've learned is how to use Zoom. So maybe we can work with that so that we can get groups of people together from different parts of the county. Again, it's listening and learning and agree on a common goal.
Ms. Drish.
Would you repeat the question?
Yes, I will. If you are elected as county supervisor, how should the constituents of Jefferson County measure whether or not you were successful during your term?
You know, I think it's really up to them. You know, I'm going to try as hard as I can to be the best listener. 4 years from now, if people can say I was a good listener, I would like to be known as the person who listened to everybody and listened to their complaints, no matter how trivial or how huge. I just think it has to do with compromise, listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Vladimir. You bet. If you are elected as supervisor, how should the constituents of Jefferson County measure whether or not you were successful during your term?
As a person, that is one of the things that is hard for me to do, to promote myself, to tell you that I did this, that I did that. That is hard for me to do. I've had to do that at work when you have a review, and that is just hard. You have to tell me if I did the job properly for you. You have to know that I have integrity, that I'm honest with you, and that I'm doing the best job I can. But that's as far as I can go on me telling you how I would act.
Thank you, candidates. Ms. Sandquist, everyone has their own personal strengths and weaknesses. We've had a chance to hear about your strengths. In what areas do you anticipate needing personal growth in order to be successful?
One of the areas that I'm researching now is zoning because of what's come up with the extraterritorial zoning. And so figuring out technical areas that I want more information about and how to look at things differently. I tend to be out of the box, but then I get back to reality really quick. So one of my weaknesses is I tend to do a lot of different things, and that's good, and I can juggle that ball. I like to prioritize based on timelines, and sometimes it's just a matter of timing. One weakness is I don't like to file very well, so I make myself sit down every now and then and do that. But I really try to listen and be fair, and if somebody identifies a weakness for me, I will definitely listen and see what I can do to learn more about that area. Some areas for new supervisors and for ones who've been there, there's a school every 2 years, and I think that's a really good update to get an overview of all the issues and the updates. So any education that we have through the Iowa Association of Counties I found to be helpful.
Thank you. Ms. Drish.
Repeat that again for me, would you please?
Absolutely. Everyone has their own personal strengths and weaknesses. We've had a chance to hear about your strengths. What are some areas that you anticipate needing some personal growth in order to be successful?
I think one of my weaknesses is the fact that I do care a whole lot about this county. I do try to do too much sometimes, and whether it's in my personal life or whatever, I get involved with too many things. I need to learn to prioritize, which probably is not going to be very hard to do. I just need to learn to gauge myself. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Vladimir.
Well, me being probably the oldest one up here, personal growth on some things as a whole, I'm ready to retire on. But I also feel that if you sit around and don't do anything, your brain turns to mush. So I always try to improve myself by maybe listening to the news, listening to other people. I don't read, I look at pictures. And another thing that I'm deficient in is public speaking, because I have not had the opportunity in my life to do much of it. And it's called getting your ideas across. And that is something that I have a problem with. So I can say things, but it just doesn't come out, and people just don't understand what I'm saying.
Thank you. Mr. Adam.
Yeah, well, all my life I've been in farming for over 45 years, and I've been a builder. I feel like that if you stay the same, you will always stay the same. I've built convenience stores, I've built hog sheds, I've built office buildings. I'm a builder. I like to see things grow in my community, and I've put a lot of money in Batavia, Iowa, because that is my home. And people say, "Why do you do that?" I said, "Because this is where I live, and I want to see Batavia grow." And I believe that if my experience is working with people, you can, if you are a good negotiator, you can compromise and get really close to what you want. But you have to treat people fairly if you're going to be a leader in a project. You have to call them on task when they're not going by their agreement. Work with people that will work with, and that's what I want to see out of this county. I want to see more working with the people. We have all kinds of companies in this county that can do work for our county, and I believe we're lacking going to those people and getting them to bid on our jobs. I want people in our county to be top priority of the bids of anything that we could do in our county and work with them.
Thank you. Thank you all for participating this evening. At this time, we will break for 2 minutes while the candidates prepare their closing statements, and I must offer my apologies to the candidates for sheriff as I neglected to do that for them. During these 2 minutes, I'd also like to thank you all for joining, both here in the House and in your own homes. Thank you to all the candidates for participating. On behalf of the co-organizers, Fairfield Area Chamber of Commerce, Fairfield Economic Development Association, and Fairfield Arts and Convention Center, we wish to thank Fairfield Media Center and KMCD Radio for making this forum publicly available to the residents of Jefferson County, and Freeman Kevinides Law Firm for making the candidate forums possible. Please join us tomorrow evening for our state legislature candidates forum, where we'll be interviewing the candidates for Iowa Senate District 42 and Iowa House of Representatives District 82 and 84. The forums tomorrow will begin just exactly at the same time as they did this evening at 6:15 p.m. I'll try to get out early for you. Excellent. By luck of the draw, the closing statements will commence with Mr. Vladimir, followed by Ms. Drish, followed by Mr. Adam, and Ms. Sandquist will close us out. Mr. Vladimir.
So, to make excuses for myself, as I said, I am not very good at public speaking and expressing stuff. I am very good at expressing my opinion, though. So, if you've ever talked to a surveyor, you can come off with the feeling that they are independent. And you would be correct, and the older they get, the more independent they are. When I was working out of the office, I was basically on my own, especially when I was working out of town. Early in my career, there was no such thing as a cell phone or a calculator, and I had no one to consult with to help me out. All I had was one book and the knowledge stored in my head. When I first got into, and you learn to rely on yourself for decision making. When I first got into surveying, we had a 3-man crew, and as a crew chief, I had to make sure everybody was working as a team. With the advent of more sophisticated equipment, the survey crew was reduced to 2 people, which required more teamwork. Leadership and being a teacher are the requirements of a survey crew chief. Working in different counties across the state, I interacted with different county offices, which helps me understand the operation and duties of county offices. I also bring with me the understanding that when I work for a city, state, or county government, that my wage is paid by the citizens of that entity, which means I am answerable to you. Whether it is in the private sector or public sector, I do not like to see employees wasting time, and I cannot see myself doing what I do not like these people doing. I would be wasting my and your tax money. When I worked at the DOT, I earned the respect of the people I worked with. One of the things that was said to me when I retired was that I looked out for the DOT, which meant
Thank you, Mr. Vladimir. Thank you. Ms. Drish.
You know, I have a very diverse background. I'm vice president of a local insurance company. I do serve on the board of the Jefferson County Extension. I've served on the Indian Hills Diversity Committee from its inception till 2018 when I retired. I live on a farm, a small farm. It's a very diverse farm. We have bees, a riparian buffer. We do rotational grazing. We have a high season growing tunnel. We have solar. Did I mention bees? We have bees. I feel I have a wide enough background to be able to listen to anybody in this community that wants to have a conversation about anything. I also believe that my previous employment and my vision for the future gives me the proper background to serve all of you and all of the folks in Jefferson County well and fairly as your next supervisor. I would also like to say and give thanks to the present supervisors. They've done a very good job of leading by example by reducing their budget. Thank you very much. Please vote for me.
Thank you. Mr. Adam.
Yeah, you know, about 8 months ago, I was asked to run for supervisor by Lee Dimmitt, and he says, you know, Nick, he says, I think you're a leader in the community, and I think you could win the county supervisor position. And I feel like that I work well with people, and I'm a builder, and I like to see growth. I like to see things happen, and I will guarantee you, if I am your next supervisor, they'll be better, the people in this community will be better educated what's going on in our county, is what I want to be, a very proactive of educating what's going on in our county. I don't want surprises. I don't want people saying, well, I didn't know you was going to spend that money on something that I don't think the people in the county would appreciate. So that's why I'd like to have your vote on November 3rd for county supervisors. Thank you.
Ms. Sandquist.
Thank you for spending time with us tonight. I would like to ask for your vote on November 3rd or before. And I make decisions based upon facts, consider the available dollars, and find the common sense solutions. I can see the big picture and how the working parts move together and how to maximize the funding streams that we have. And I see that success is how we are all working together in our county. And it takes listening to the public and a willingness to find solutions. And I do have a respect for the past, and so I think it's important that we do cherish the past, but we also need to work toward the future because it's going to change whether we want it to or not. One ongoing goal that is a struggle is communicate, communicate, communicate. You know, our meetings are on Zoom now, and we really have not had that many more people attend. We welcome your attendance. It's available on the Fairfield Media channel after the fact. In mental health, we have some really good preventative services going, and the governance board hears this from me all the time. Well, how does John Q. Public know about this? So we need to, everywhere, do a better job, and nobody reads one paper, nobody listens to one radio station, nobody reads one Facebook page. So we need to do a lot of different ways to communicate. We spent a lot of time on budget talk tonight, and I would invite anyone to come to our public hearings. We have them at least twice during the budget process, if not 3 times. They're usually In February and March, our official papers are the Southeast Iowa Union and the one up at Richland. And so please look at that, and even though that's what the state says we do, and just thank you for spending time with us tonight.
Thank you, candidates. Thank you all for participating this evening. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'll catch you later, Mr. Adam.
I'd just like to thank the Chamber for putting this on. I didn't close with not thanking the Chamber and the Fairfield Convention Center for doing this tonight. I think it was wonderful.
Thank you, and the Fairfield Economic Development Association. I'm Lindsay Bauer of the Fairfield Arts and Convention Center, and I wish you all a safe and informed election season. Good night.